now recording here. Yeah. I'm going to get the third camera up and running. You get in here and run sound.
Company commission has changed.
Ready? Hello, folks. I'm Eric. I'm your new president, and I'd like to commence the 2013-2014 Washington County Public Affairs Forum season, and thank you for all attending. I saw our speaker coming in the front door, so I'm very happy about that. It's getting a little stressful there. It's wonderful to see you all here, and I'd like to just go over the September agenda with you very briefly. We do have Andy Duyck speaking here in just a couple minutes. Next week we have Matt Sanders from Oregon Wave Energy Trust. TBA is for the 23rd, but we have some statewide electeds coming September 30th and October 7th. Ted Wheeler's going to be here for the September 30th meeting, and Kate Brown, our Secretary of State, will be here for the October 7th meeting. I'd like to really share some wonderful news with you. What I think is most exciting about this season is that we have reduced our forum membership fees. And we were able to successfully execute that change in the organization by doing the following. As opposed to paying TVC TV to come out and produce our videos, we brought that in-house with a partnership with the Aloha Library. We're borrowing their video camera as we speak right now. It's back in the corner. We don't have to spend $170 per week in order to record the programs. So we've taken that portion off of your annual dues, and I'm really pleased to share that with you. And also, since we've, now we're doing that last season, but it came in our balance sheet to this season. Next, I'd like to show you these. We wrote a grant and we got a bunch of laptops. And we got them for free from an organization called Free Geek. Large organizations like Nike and Adidas often recycle big banks of laptops, hundreds at a time. So Free Geek is an organization that keeps these out of landfills and gives them in the hands of 501c3s like our organization. I'm waiting for risk management at Beaverton School District 48 in order to approve another request of mine, and that is to put interns, high school students, in front of these laptops so that we engage in live social media activity during our meetings. And this is part of my strategy as president, bringing younger, fresher energy and more technology savvy volunteers to the forum in order to increase our visibility. That is something that I think is really important as just part of the leadership that I want to provide to you. I heard strongly at the conclusion of our last season that there were things you didn't want, and that's people reading from PowerPoint presentations. You wanted dynamic presenters, you wanted dynamic speakers, and I want to thank a couple people, specifically John McWilliams and Kathy Stanton for stepping up and helping with our program committee and starting to book this season, and not taking a break and taking our forum to the next level with high-quality state-level elected speakers. Also, Joseph Tyner back there, he's the brother of John Tyner, who's the incidentally the forum past president, but more importantly the father of a very successful local athlete who's becoming a national and internationally known athlete. And those are a wonderful, remarkable pair. Joseph Tyner stepped up and helped with the video production and really made the ability for us to reduce our dues possible. He's doing double duty right now with doing both sound and recording audio and video. So those are some tremendous tasks, and he's just taken to it remarkably well. I want to make sure that I'm accessible to the forum body as the new president, and if you have comments or concerns, please feel free to approach me. I'd like to have a dialogue with you. I have a last request, and that last request is that unlike other meetings that are held in this banquet room, we are not being charged a gratuity surcharge. When I'm here Thursday mornings for the optimists, they tag on 10, 15, 20%. They're not doing that in this case. So I implore you to be generous and tip your servers because that tip is not being imposed on us. And one of the things that I'm happy to say is I don't have to buy a $13 plate of spaghetti and I can order off the menu and get what I want. And that was one of the things that I heard strongly from the forum membership, is that all Italian food all the time, was not all right. So we made that change, and we get some cheaper food, and I hope it's better, and if it's not, please let me know. But what I'd like to do is buy a minute or two for our speaker, Andy Duyck, to come up and chat with us, and just let you know that we have a lot of exciting programming coming down the pike. And one little hint that I'd like to drop is that we are in the process of booking meetings that are outside of our regular Monday noon lunch slot. And the Washington County Forum should reflect Washington County. So there's talk about taking a road show for evening meetings in places that we've traditionally ignored, like Gaston, North Plains, Tualatin, Wilsonville, either the nether regions of the county like Cedar Mill. And thank you for the courtesy laugh. What I'd like to do is just let you know that if you have your part of your community or your pet projects are underrepresented, I want to make sure that you engage in a dialogue with myself, John McWilliams, Kathy Stanton, and we get these issues, topics, and projects involved in the forum. With that being said, I ask for some applause for our amazing county chair, Andy Duyck.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you all. Okay, Eric asked me to come and talk a little bit about where the county's been, where the county's going. I didn't get a chance to speak to you all during the March State of the County address, and that's unfortunate, but you know, a lot of things happen throughout the year, and the address I would give today is entirely different than what I would have given back several months ago. So you're getting a preview of what might come next year. You're getting an advance here. First, let's talk about current conditions, and then major accomplishments, and then lastly, a look at the future. Washington County is Oregon's fastest growing county, and we are racially and ethnically the most diverse county in the entire state. Now, I asked to hand out a map that shows the racial diversity that we have throughout the county. It's the one with all the little dots on it, the little colored map there. Every dot represents a citizen of Washington County and their stated ethnicity on their census form. And it gives you a good sense of how the county is integrated ethnically and how diverse we've really become. And also, the population of Washington County continues to grow. The year I was born, I'll divulge that, 1960. The population, I know. But the population of Washington County was the equivalent of what Hillsboro's population is today. And it's grown 6 times over that time, over those years, adding 24 new residents every day of every year for the past 50 years. So while rapid growth is nothing new, the racial and ethnic diversity of our county has brought dramatic change to our communities and to our neighborhoods. In fact, I was speaking just the other day to the Beaverton School District, and very soon they will be the 2nd largest school district in the entire state, and they boast that, at least they state, that 93 different languages are spoken at home by the students that attend those schools. That's about as diverse as you can get. Still, even with the growth and the change in ethnic diversity, residents seem to be generally pleased with Washington County. I also sent out an article there by the Hillsboro Tribune, and the title of that is Washington County, the World's Happiest County. This scientific survey, which was done by DHM Research, listed 99% of citizens saying that the county is either an excellent or a good place to live. There was only 1% who thought it was a poor place to live. Now those are numbers that you don't generally get in any survey unless it happens to be a lifestyle type of community like Bend, or there's a few others around the state. So it usually takes special consideration to get those high of numbers. And why do most people think that this is a good or excellent place? Now here I'm venturing strictly into opinion. Washington County has no bonded debt. We have no debt as of this last couple of years. Washington County also has good roads and good public transportation. It has many job opportunities, and it has great livable suburbs that provide the basic services at a very reasonable cost to most of our residents. But there are a few hiccups. It's not all rosy. As with any organization, you can expect that we have some challenges. education still ranks among the most pressing issues for Washington County citizens. And the risk of insolvency among some of our more rural counties in the state puts a shadow over what we do here in Washington County, because depending on what the solution is, we could end up being impacted by that. It could put a huge burden on Washington County. Consider that about $1 in $5 that the state receives through income tax comes from here at home, from us. So whatever a state solution is, it means that more of our dollars are going to be used to fix that solution, solve that problem. And of course, congestion is beginning to take a toll on our transportation system. We all know that. I was here a little bit late for a reason today. And speaking of the transportation piece, as we all enjoy our lunch here today, the Washington County Coordinating Committee is considering a vehicle registration fee for the county. They're supposed to make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners as to whether or not we should enact a countywide vehicle registration fee. The purpose of that additional revenue would be solely for road maintenance. This is not added capacity. This is for maintaining what we already have. If you think about it, we all know that cars are getting more or better gas mileage than what they've gotten in the past. And how many of us now are driving electric or hybrid vehicles? Therefore, the gas tax does not keep up with the added impact to the road system. And keep in mind that the gas tax is the primary source of maintenance money to maintain that system. So the county is looking for a stopgap measure that would get us through until a more stable means of funding is developed. I certainly wouldn't imply that Washington County roads are in bad shape. Heck, you can just drive from our county to any other county and you can see our county roads are in fairly decent shape. Although we do have about a $10 million backlog in maintenance needs, you'd never notice it. But if you drove up around Hag Lake, you might. You'd see a couple of slide areas there where the pavement's dropped off 9 inches, and those are very expensive to repair. But there's other areas in the county as well where the pavement life, the useful life, is beginning to deteriorate. And for every dollar that we spend in maintaining those roads now, we prevent ourselves from having to spend $5 later doing reconstruction. So it becomes a pretty wise investment from a dollars and cents standpoint. By the time you notice that there's a problem with the roads, usually it's too late, and you have to go through a complete reconstruction. So, given the issues faced by our neighboring counties, it would seem wiser to me to deal with the issues early on rather than wait till there's actually a problem. But I'm also not immune to the struggles that we all face with rising costs. Even though recent studies have concluded that Oregon is the cheapest place to own a vehicle of all of the 50 United States, you still should not take this lightly. And I'm proposing that although the state law would allow us to raise the vehicle registration fee $43, we should only, if we raise it, we should only raise it what is needed to fill the gap. We shouldn't be looking for an extra revenue source beyond that. Because I believe as we come out of the recession, we will see an increase in revenues, and that will help to close that gap. We've done some outreach polling, and we found that the public is tentatively supportive as long as the money truly goes for road repair. So, like most people, they're willing to pay as long as they know the money's going to go where we say we're going to use it, and it doesn't go into some black hole of government. Speaking of outreach polling, in the same poll where we were trying to assess public opinions about transportation, we did an open-ended question about what people saw as the primary need of the county. And it popped up as education. Well, education's not what the county does, but it goes to show that we have some real needs in our educational system, not only in Washington County, but throughout the state. And I'll address that just a little bit later as to what we're looking at to do about that problem. Last week, our local papers reported that Washington County had recovered all of the jobs that we had lost through the recession. As a matter of fact, those numbers were a little bit old. We recovered those jobs back in February, and everything since then has actually been an increase in jobs beyond what we had pre-recession levels. There are several major contributors to why that is and why we have so many jobs here. Intel's D1X, the largest investment in the entire state, the largest private sector capital investment in the entire state, was completed and has come online right now. So that's a big one right there. We also have the first hospital that was built in 50 years, Kaiser Permanente. That's pretty significant. We have the largest commercial retail development in the state, Progress Ridge in Beaverton. And in April, Nike announced plans to expand their corporate world campus, adding new buildings and hundreds of new jobs. I can tell you, actually, I think it's thousands of new jobs, but we'll just estimate conservatively here. And I can tell you that just 4 months later, today, they've already broke ground for that project. So things are moving along. This is pretty significant. Our job is how we manage that growth and development, and that's going to be a real challenge. Although jobs are only part of the equation for a strong county, the significance of those jobs should not be lost on anyone. Another article in the Oregonian just last week called Silicon Forest on Fire. It detailed the average wage in the state and what the average wage of a high-tech sector job is, and it's more than double. I mean, this is pretty impressive considering that we live in a state that's highly dependent upon income tax. So anything we do to improve or increase those jobs lifts all boats at the state level. Now, some would mistakenly believe that this is just an accident of topography or the fact that we happen to have a lot of water resources here, or maybe just dumb luck. I want to assure you that it's not an accident, but a series of decisions that started long before I was on the Board of Commissioners. So I'm not even taking credit for those earlier decisions, but I do take credit for maintaining the status quo and keeping us going in that same direction. But aside from the economic side, what else have we accomplished here in Washington County? Perhaps one of the biggest achievements is the annexation of West Bonnie Slope, oftentimes referred to as Area 93. Now, this is an area in Multnomah County that it's about 160 acres in Multnomah County that came into the urban growth boundary, was brought in by Metro in 2002. But because of a series of decisions that were made by Multnomah County and Metro through the years, it became impossible for them to serve the area with sewer, water, and all of the services that are necessary for urbanization. So here was 160 acres, a promise made to citizens in the area that that would be the next areas developed. A promise is made to all of us that we would develop in the areas brought into the urban growth boundary so that we wouldn't have to expand onto farm and forest land, and yet the land was not even ready for development and couldn't be developed. So this is an example of where Washington County, Multnomah County, Metro, the state legislature, and the governor saw a problem, put their politics aside, and we all worked for a solution, even though there was no real gain for any of us, no political gain for any of us in it, other than doing the right thing. And I have to say to my colleagues in the other jurisdictions, Multnomah County and Metro particularly, and especially to their staffs, I am very, very appreciative about how they worked with us to resolve the issues. When the bill got down to the legislature to actually move the boundary, it passed, let's see, what was it? Well, let's just say there was not a single vote. There were 2 abstentions, but not a single vote against it. And you don't see that at the legislative level very often. In Washington County and Multnomah County, we passed ordinances as well that move this forward, and again, they've all been unanimous. So this is extremely impressive. At one point, there was a legislator who said to me, well, what's so difficult about moving a boundary? You just pass some legislation and the line moves. Well, think about it a little bit. How many of us have all of our voting records that reside at some county building? We have all of our land records. So anytime we bought and sold property, we have all of our tax records. Do we still owe property taxes? There are many other things. Who provides the services, the water and the sewer and the fire protection and the police protection? All of those issues have to be worked out meticulously before you can ever move the boundaries. And our staffs and the staffs of both Washington County and Multnomah County worked on every one of those issues with a common goal in mind to make it work. And I can tell you, I can stand here today and say that it has been successful. Now, that being said, when does this happen? At midnight on December 31st, 2013. we will have 160 more acres in Washington County. And that ends the phase of annexation, and it begins the new phase of planning. So that means that next spring, we will begin the concept planning process for West Bonnie Slope, which involves setting where the roads will be, figuring out what the densities will be, and the zoning, and other amenities. But through this whole process, we've kept one thing in mind. It was intended to be as revenue neutral as possible. We didn't want to shift a burden from this area 93 or West Bonnie Slope, to all of you who are existing residents of Washington County. So that's been an overriding philosophy. And I believe that we've done that as close as we possibly could. So, moving on, perhaps the biggest challenge in the direction of the county going forward will be driven by investments that we've made in the past. And what I mean here is talking about strategic investment program and gain share. You didn't think I could stand up here and not talk about gain share, did you? This is something that I've spent a tremendous amount of time working on over the past year, and it's really big. The strategic investment program, for those who don't know, is an agreement that that local governments, Washington County and in this case the city of Hillsborough, worked on with large companies like Intel and Genentech to cap their property tax at $100 million, $100 million of assessed value. And in doing so, what we did is we guaranteed that Intel, for example, would invest over $25 billion worth of capital improvements here in Washington County. So all of the construction jobs and everything that goes along with that are here in Washington County. But even more important than that is the fact that by doing that, we have helped the state to the tune of about $270 million worth of income tax that goes to the state that would not have been here had we not made that decision. So we've given up a small amount in proportion to what the state gets. But the catch is that local government gave up property taxes, the state government gets the windfall of the income taxes. So in 2007, we argued to them, we said, wait a minute, our residents are making a commitment here through us, a commitment to give up revenue that we should rightfully get. How about if you share back with us just 50% of the income tax paid by the new and retained jobs that we're creating? At the time, they jumped at the chance. I mean, it wasn't even a big debate. They jumped at it and they said, yes, we would love to do that because we really need the income at the state level. Well, it started about a year ago when we're supposed to get our first check, and right out of the chute, folks said, we don't like giving money back to local government. Of course, we're saying, wait a minute, this is a commitment, but they hold all the cards and we're at their mercy somewhat. And the reason, the basis for this, is that when they did the analysis about what they would be giving up, they thought, well, they'd be giving up about $4 million because they expected they would get about 4 and we would get about 4, about $8 million coming into the state coffers. Well, it's been so successful, it's been more like $50 million. And just this year, in fact, last week, we received a check for $23 million. That's our share. Thank you. The key here to remember is that if we're getting $23 million, the state's also getting $23 million. And that $23 million predominantly goes to education. You see a theme here? We're helping education by our actions, by helping the state. And we believe strongly that that needs to occur. But wait, there's a lot more than that. Not only are we raising all the boats at the state level, but locally, Mayor Willie from Hillsborough and Washington County decided to get together and help our local schools. That means schools here in Washington County. So we made an announcement that we were going to carve $10 million out of what we get locally, which we could spend on anything we wanted, but we're going to carve it out and we're going to give it to the schools. No strings attached, because the schools can then figure out whether it's capital needs or putting teachers back in the classroom. Let them decide that. That's their business. That's why you all elect them. But we thought this was important because the burdens put on our local schools through development is disproportionate to the rest of the state. And I think that's pretty important. We see ourselves as partners in helping to do education, though we don't do education directly ourselves. So it keeps getting better even after that. The Board of Commissioners met here, I believe it was last week, at least within the last couple of weeks, to talk about what we're going to do with the remaining funds, the part that we're keeping out even after we carve something out for schools. And one of those big priorities that the board unanimously agreed on was that we would, for the first time, have a bike and ped safety program to the tune of about $3 million a year. It's a pretty significant amount of money, considering that we're a county that doesn't do that much bike and ped. But $3 million a year to improve sidewalk gaps both inside and outside of cities. So this is money that we see as county-wide money. It's not just county, it belongs to all residents, whether you live inside or outside of a city. And it will close the sidewalk gaps where possible and improve safe routes to school and to public transportation. So this is major when you think about what $3 million can do, and particularly if we use it to leverage other money, then it can go a long ways. All of these projects, oh, excuse me, one more thing. We've also created a fund for traffic signal coordination. And now this is, yeah, it's a long time coming. It's a long time coming, that's for sure. And this is an attempt to get more out of what we already have so that we don't have to put down more expensive pavement that we have to maintain. All of these projects are intended to continue improving the livability of the county. There's no question that the Strategic Investment Program and the Gain Share program are good for the state. Together they drive huge investments and they create a lot of jobs, and they're good for local governments. They're a good reward for local governments to encourage them to think long term and to think about the bigger picture of the entire state, not just their own services. So we can see how those rewards have improved our own county. However, if the legislature chooses to alter the agreement in any way, then all of the programs that I just talked about, we'll have to go back to the drawing board and reconsider whether or not we can continue to fund them. It would have a severe dampening effect on the willingness of local government to give up property tax down the road, especially in the face of a public who only sees it as corporate welfare but doesn't look at what the return on that investment would be. There's been some speculation that the state might not change the formula, but might mandate that we continue to give money to the schools. Well, you might think about that. You might think, well, that's not a big deal. We're already giving money to the schools. But the problem here is that if the state mandates it, they already have what we call a state funding formula for the schools. And if they mandate it, then what they're doing is they're breaking the integrity of the state school funding system. And we would find ourselves in a position where we would have to say, wait a minute, shouldn't this money go to all schools within the state? After all, it would be hypocritical if we didn't do it, given that we've taken the position with forestry funds that went through rural counties, through the state. Actually, it came from the federal government through the state to rural counties. We argued that that money, because it went through the state, had to be used for all school districts throughout the state. It'd be hypocritical for us now to reverse that and say that money that goes through the state to us should not be used for all school districts as well. So what we're asking is that the state allow us to do our job, trust that we know what the priorities are in the county, including education, and that we will continue to help provide all the services wherever they are needed. And we don't need the state to tell us exactly where it goes, because that would change everything and it would harm our local schools. They would actually get less. So to sum up, Washington County remains an excellent place to live and work. And I could have spoke on a number of issues, including water issues, urbanization and annexation, or about some of the other transportation challenges that we face, but due to lack of time, I'm going to have to save those for another day. We have always had challenges, but with the roadmap that we currently are operating under for the future, it helps us to deal effectively with the pressures of growth. And we have the resources to back those plans. So because of this, I would have to agree with the Hillsborough Tribune that Washington County is the world's happiest place. So thank you very much. Are there any questions I could answer? We have so many issues at the county. I don't know what might be on your minds today, if there's anything special you wanted to ask.
I'm Bill Kroger, forum member. Thanks for coming today, Commissioner.
Morning, Bill.
I saw a news bulletin on the news yesterday. They're having a hemp fest, or they were in Portland, and there was open people. They were selling and smoking pot and everything. I know the whole thing is starting to change, and I was just curious if the county has any. You know, police were all over and they weren't doing anything about it, even though it still is against the law. But I was just curious in Washington County to talk about that issue and if there's anything changing, or the mood or the attitude or anything like that.
Well, this is one that has not really raised up on our agenda. The sheriff is very involved in it. I know the sheriff had an opinion against the legalization of marijuana. I'm not in a position to take that opinion right now. I actually personally make a distinction between hemp and marijuana, but that's an issue that the public will have to decide itself, and we will live with the results, whatever that may be.
Al Falcone, forum member. I certainly appreciate you stopping by, Commissioner. One of the things I wanted to ask you was, and I don't know if you have a referral for this department, but sometimes when people cross the road, someone has asked me, can you have an audio as far as don't cross, light changing, so on and so forth. And there's someone tried here on Farmington and Kinnaman, where it's kind of a busy road that winds around, and they tried to get that into that area several months ago, and they were not given any response.
I assume you're referring to crossings for the hearing impaired?
Yes,
Yes,
hearing and visually impaired.
Correct, yeah.
No.
And yeah, I'm sorry, I said the hearing impaired, I meant the vision impaired. Yeah.
That's okay.
I
was like the right person.
No, that's all right. See, I'm hearing impaired. No, honestly, again, this is not something that has come up. However, I have experienced these types of devices in many jurisdictions and do find them actually helpful, especially if you're not paying attention. If you're involved in a conversation, it reminds you when to walk across. With everything, there's a cost associated with it. And so we have to weigh out where are the best uses of our resources. But I will ask the question when I get back and find out if it's the right time to start transitioning to that type of device, or if we are so short on even having crossing signals that we need to spread our dollars with the conventional system first. Kathy.
Thank you. Thank you for coming, Andy. Kathy Stanton, forum member. I wanted to go back to what, in the very first part of your presentation, when you talked about the need for preservation and maintenance of our roads, or maintenance and preservation. Pick a side. I'm excited about a vehicle registration surcharge. I'm willing to pay for it. I'm willing to pay for preservation and maintenance. But has the county looked at the data? Is the county involved in any of the conversations regarding going to a vehicle miles traveled tax as opposed to a gas tax, so that we can actually get revenue for people who use the roads regardless of how much gasoline their vehicles need?
Yes, we looked at that, and while I think ultimately that will be the system that this state uses, in fact I think it's the system the entire nation will use once we figure out the security issues, I don't think it's appropriate on a small scale. We looked at it and it would be very difficult to implement because we are such a small county. And so at this time it's not something that we've chosen to do. It requires a whole system set up that doesn't exist today. And so we're waiting for the state to deal with that.
What about a countywide gas tax?
A countywide gas tax. By law, a gas tax would have to go to a vote. Our polls show that it probably would not pass. And honestly, it doesn't resolve the issue of equity. Now, you could argue that vehicle registration doesn't either if you own lots of vehicles. But the gas tax still does not have folks who are not paying any gas tax pay anything toward the road system that they're using.
Jim Cape, forum member. Sorry to ask, but there were concerns about your vote to hire Alan for counsel. Alan was one of the lead attorneys during the Nike case, which wasted tax dollars, scared away jobs, and reduced local government credibility. Alan never apologized. So why wasn't there greater proper due diligence in Alan's closed job interview process? Thank you.
Well, since I was on the committee that helped to choose Alan, and so I take full credit or blame, however you want to consider it. I've known Alan for quite some time, even before he worked for the city of Beaverton. I found him to be fairly honest. I do not know that. Well, all of us have some quirks.
Very honest,
No.
John.
Yeah, no, I found him to give me the straight scoop every time. Even when he knew that it was not the answer I'm looking for, he always gave me the straight scoop. I don't know what transpired between he and the city of Beaverton. I was not privy to those conversations. But I do know what he did for the county prior to working for Beaverton, and I know what he's done for the county since he has worked for us. And he still has my full faith and support.
I'm Lee Coleman, forum member. I'm paying the county $740 a month in property taxes, and you want me to pay for a road use fee? I'm sorry. I'm already paying a road use fee to one of the utilities. And so I'm asking you to figure out how you can justify that and communicate that to the public. Secondly, I'm interested in finding out whether any proposed road tax, road maintenance, road backsheesh fee would preempt other entities within the county that are charging for road use fee. I believe it's Hillsborough, but I'm not quite sure.
Okay, let me answer that because there's several questions there. First of all, let me work backwards. Would it preempt other jurisdictions? The answer is no, it would not preempt other jurisdictions. And one thing that I failed to mention is that of the tax, the fee that we would raise, revenue we would raise, 40% of that goes to the cities by law. There is a state distribution formula, 60% counties, 40% to cities. So it is additional revenue on the part of the cities. Our interest is the county side, and the county has no utility tax. You may pay one, depending on which city you happen to live in. I have no control over that, and we can't reach in and grab city revenues and use it for county roads. So my interest is in making sure that we have a solid transportation system for the county. That's all I can do at this time. As I said in my statement, I don't take it lightly. I've opposed the vehicle registration fee for nearly 20 years, but I've also looked at the numbers, and there comes a time when we're elected to show some leadership and recognize that if there's a need that can't be filled any other way, you have to do something about it. And that's where I finally come to the point of supporting this fee. Yes,
Lee Hunt, forum member. This question is probably a little outside your jurisdiction, except you've mentioned education a number of times. I've observed on television this campaign to raise money to help students buy the supplies that they need to go to school. When I was going to school, I think we might have needed a pencil. We got paper, we got pens, we got books and everything.
it was a little easier in those days, wasn't it?
In a free education system, it seems to me, the families with children and children themselves shouldn't have to come up with $29 or whatever it is in order to go to school. They can pay what they want on fancy clothes, but the necessities of school, it seems to me, ought to be free if it's a free education. I don't know what you can do about it, but I think we should be moving in that direction.
Well, I strongly support schools being adequately funded. Of course, that's easy to say, not so easy to accomplish. There are a number of reasons why we have problems with schools and the money doesn't go as far as it used to go. Part of that is PERS. That's the elephant in the tent. Something that I don't happen to believe is a good system. But until that's resolved, we're going to continue to have these shortfalls, I'm afraid. And we will continue to do our part at the county to support the schools as much as we can without getting directly into service provision.
I'm glad to hear that, but I think we all benefit from educated students. So keep them out of prison, they get better jobs, they pay more income tax and everything. I can't think of anything.
You might want to grab the mic there for a second if you want to make a final comment. Yeah, the gentleman was just saying, just so it's on the record, that we all benefit from an educated student population or workforce, and I couldn't agree with you more.
The John Tyner, forum member.
The interesting thing that's occurring in this area, which actually has countywide implications, is the issue of the development of South Hillsborough and also South Beaverton and the lack of north-south connections, which I know you've been aware of for quite some time, and folks who deliver things in the trucking industry and just individuals recognize that. But what things can the county do to assist the city of Hillsborough and some of the state, perhaps, if they so decide, getting that extension of Cornelius Pass hooked up to perhaps a road on the west side of Cooper Mountain to facilitate countywide transit north and south, because the county's going to have a real problem of congestion in some of those areas if that doesn't happen, not just in 12, not just in Aloha, but all points in between.
Well, you've got two very good points. The first one is, what can the county do to alleviate some of the concerns of South Hillsborough? And one of the points of discussion that we've had with the City of Hillsborough are different funding mechanisms that would improve off-site transportation, because it's not just the roads in South Hillsborough that need to be improved. Once you have 20-some thousand folks living in the area, or whatever the number is, they have to go somewhere, and they're going to go on roads off-site. So we're trying to work with the City of Hillsborough, and Hillsborough's been very cooperative so far in recognizing there's a responsibility there to improve some intersections, some traffic connection or transportation connections, and try to alleviate some of the problems. One of the possibilities that's been bantered about a little bit is the possibility of forming an urban renewal district that includes not only South Hillsborough, but also Reedville and even possibly part of Aloha. And if we did something like that, it would capture the increase in value once South Hillsborough comes online, and you could use that increase for transportation problems wherever they may lie within the district. So if the district is large enough, it would allow us the shifting of money back and forth. If done correctly, it could increase the value not only of South Hillsborough, but also of existing communities of Reedville and Aloha. And if you're increasing value, then you have more value to capture under an urban renewal district. And that's the theory behind it all, is that all boats lift, so capture it all and use it where it's appropriate to make those boats continue to lift. Now the other issue that you mentioned was the issue that keeps popping up and getting slapped down, popping up, slapped down, and that's West Side Bypass. It's a dirty word for some people to say. Let me talk about what the legislature did this last session. We didn't ask for it, but the legislature, Senator Starr in particular, found about $1.5 million for Washington County to use for a West Side transportation study. And right away, before we even decided what we were going to do with the money, we had folks coming out saying that's a backdoor way to get a West Side bypass. So it becomes very difficult even to have an honest discussion about transportation needs when you have such polarizing forces on both ends. Those who say a bypass is the only solution, and those who say no bypass is allowed under any circumstance. So we're hoping to bring both sides together and craft a honest look at the transportation needs of the next 50 years and figure out what is the solution. If it is a bypass, that's what we ought to do. But if it's not a bypass, then let's not. But let's not go into it with some preconceived notions about what the answer is, because it might even be a combination of several things. So I hope that answers the question. Other questions? Oh, Harry.
Back door. Harry Bodine, foreign member. I'd invite anybody who pursues that line of thought you just had, Andy, to go to 217 any afternoon after 2 o'clock, southbound lanes going into Beaverton. It is a total parking lot, and we're still the only county in the United States with 500,000 people and no interstate highway. But that's not my question.
No, but it is relevant.
I overshoot. You know, this next year, this is a governance and political question. 3 of the 5 members of the county board are up for re-election next year. So, any indication what you or Greg or Bob Terry are going to do?
My belief is that all 3 of us will be up for re-election and run. I can speak for myself, and I'm not making any secret about it, although I've not made a formal announcement. This is as close as it gets. I'm running. This is not a campaign speech. It's still early, but yes, I intend to do it. I've just been one term as county chair, and as any of you know, when you're in a position like this and you're working at the pace of government as opposed to the pace of the private sector, things move a little bit slower. And I have a few things that I've been hoping to get done, and I'd like to see them done before I leave office. So I will run again. Other questions? Oh, yes.
Dean Wilson. I've lived in Washington County about 20 years, and for 20 years I've been hearing about the county fair, which you did not mention. What's the future of the county fair from your perspective?
That is a very good question. The reason I didn't mention it is because I know over the next year I will be talking about this quite a bit, and I didn't want you to get tired of me talking about it too soon. The county fair developed a master plan some number of years ago. I think it was about 2008, somewhere in there. So we had a master plan on what the future of the fair should look like. And that master plan was conceived by interests for all over, by Hillsborough, Washington County, the fair boosters, the fair board. Pretty much everybody who had an interest was at the table at the time. And we have moved forward with some elements of that plan, such as the road going through the property, which gives us better ingress and egress. We also did a deal with the National Guard to put a new armory, although they're not called armories, they're called readiness centers now. So they're gonna, as soon as they can find the money, they will put up a new readiness center. There are other aspects of it as well, but the biggest centerpiece to the plan is a exhibit center. Now, this is something I've been promoting for quite some time, but it's been difficult to find the funding for it. And the funding comes out of what we talked about earlier, which is the gain share pot. We have allocated over a 5-year period about $20 million to build a 93,000 square foot exhibit center. Now, some might say, why would we do this? Is this just something we're pulling out of the air? But the answer is no. This has been in the works for a long time. The Washington County Visitors Association, an independent group, commissioned a study to find out what the economic impact of an exhibit center like that would be. And it's pretty significant, not only to the city of Hillsborough, but to all of Washington County and the region as a whole. So it's money well spent, at least in my opinion. But we won't break ground right away, but what the board has tentatively authorized is about $2 million for some pre-planning over this next year. The next year after that would be the building of the plaza, which is the entryway, and probably some underground utilities. And then in the third year, we would break ground for the event center. Really quickly, the event center, as I said, 93,000 square feet. That's about 73,000 square feet of exhibit space. It's a full functioning commercial kitchen, ballrooms, meeting rooms. It's a place where we could have groups of over 500 people meet in Washington County, and right now those areas are sorely needed.
Thank you for being here today. Jerry Arnold, Forum member. In about 4 months, the Oregon Legislature will be meeting again, and I was just curious, what issues, top 2 or 3 issues, will Washington County take to the Oregon Legislature?
This has not been decided, and sure as anything, as soon as I say, then my board will have different ideas on what that will be. But there are certain themes that we have followed year after year. No preemption. Please allow us to be masters of our own destiny, because Washington County is not Clackamas County, it's not Multnomah County. We are different, and we don't want the state preempting us from doing certain types of things. It's what makes us special. We also have 240,000 people living in urban, unincorporated Washington County. Those people are not getting the full range of services that cities provide, and perhaps they don't want them, I don't know. But either way, they are also not getting the revenue that should come with being an urban area. That means things like utility fees, even the transportation. The gas tax, which is split 60-40 county and city. If you lived in a county like Multnomah County, where it's predominantly covered by a city, they get 100% of the money to cover the same land mass, because you have the city cut and the county cut covering the same land area. If we had those 240,000 people either in a city or or they were entitled to the city cut of the gas tax, it would make a huge difference to our transportation system. And we probably likely would not be going out for a vehicle registration fee under that scenario. There'd be no reason to. Anyway, so those are just some of the themes that we will continue to push for.
Chris Leslie, foreign member. I'll try to be nice. The idea of taxes, I feel, and raising gasoline taxes actually hurts productivity. It reduces really the basis of what this country is based on, capitalism, people working for a living. And how do you justify raising taxes, our salaries? And that's PERS. You brought that up. Just so we don't hear about commissioners getting a new raise. Things like that, because I always feel they always politicians raise their salaries before depression.
Well, let me address that last one first. Salaries. Washington County is unique in that we have no control over our salaries whatsoever. As a matter of fact, it's in our charter as to how that is done, and it's tagged to the state and to state salaries. So unfortunately, we don't have any control over that. I shouldn't say unfortunately. I will agree with you. Fortunately, we don't have any control over it, because I will agree there is a tendency when the money is not really yours to give it out a lot freer than you would if it were your own money. So that being the case, that's where we are on the salaries. On the PERS issue, I've been a public employee now for 19 years, and I am not a PERS recipient, because I believe very strongly that government will throw people in jail for pyramid schemes, yet it will create its own pyramid schemes and call them legal. So I feel very strongly about it, that the PERS system, when it was created, the instigators, or those who started it, should have known that it was a pyramid scheme and that it was not sustainable. And yet they threw out the window everything that they impose on the private sector, thinking it would somehow be different on the public sector, and that's not the case. So I feel strongly about that one. I think there was another one you mentioned, but I don't recall what it was.
Kathy Stanton, foreign member. I was going to talk about MISTIP, Master Transportation Improvement Project, but I heard you say some fighting words just a minute ago about taking money away from local jurisdictions that is rightfully their percentage and doing something other with that. And I wanted you to know that that would not go easy, because people who live in unincorporated areas choose to live at a lower level of service. I know the county for some years has been thinking about doing some provision of urban services to the county, actually going against the County 2000 plan. We won't go into that. But I just want to let you know, even though I am no longer a local elected official, you try to touch. Because that is how we fund everything in our cities.
Kathy, are you referring specifically to the gas tax piece?
No, I'm referring to what you were talking about utilities and others, and somehow diverting money from cities. And no.
But I strongly respect Kathy. Kathy has been a city councilor for so many years. She knows these issues well, and sometimes we can just have a difference of opinion. The utility fee, the utility fee that I'm referring to, is the franchise fee, is paid by me, who lives in the rural area, to subsidize cities, as well as every one of you who live in the urban unincorporated area. And that's where the crux of our disagreement is. I don't disagree that the cities have need of the money and put it to good use, but at the same time, when you are paying those dollars and it gets shipped to somebody else, how is that different than cities building a library and you using them? It's a transfer of the money in a way that somebody else is paying for it and you're getting the benefit. I don't like to see it go either way, personally. So that's why I argue for the franchise fees, because we all pay for that franchise fee, and it should be used for roads in our areas.
I'd like to close the meeting down with asking for some applause for our amazing speakers. Thank you. Folks, come back in a week, otherwise we're done.